Hey there, I'm Nadia, the Chief Growth Officer for Vengage, a platform that helps you tell stories and present your data with infographics. Let me paint a picture for you. You spend hours on end working on an amazing piece of content. The research, the writing, the visual assets. You've poured your heart and soul into this thing, and it performs wonders. And everyone on your team is praising the amazing results that you've managed to achieve. So your boss comes to you and tells you, hey, figure out how to make that happen again. And as a result, what do? Well, you repeat the process, because that's usually what we've been instructed to do when we find that something works really well. But this time, the results are minimal in comparison. Your team is confused, and so are you. Why didn't this content yield the same results that it did before? After all, you did everything the same. Unfortunately, this is a really common story, and the reality is that for many content marketers, only a small percentage of blog posts or videos or ebooks or infographics even drive the majority of traffic and conversions for your business. And yet we try to continue to recreate that magical piece of content, but fail over and over again. So why waste your time when you've already discovered what works? Instead, what you should be doing is figuring out how to take that one rockstar article and find a way to stretch it out as much as possible by repurposing it into new formats and onto new channels. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 4 easy steps that you can take to get the most out of your content efforts with one blog post. Now, the first thing I want to talk to you about is identification. The idea of repurposing content isn't new. A lot of marketers talk about the benefits of repurposing content into different formats and media, like webinars or YouTube videos or podcasts, and the list goes on. Visually repurposing your content in itself opens up many opportunities for driving different kinds of engagement, as well as traffic from new channels. In addition to repurposing blog content into infographics or ebooks and presentation, there's also a wide range of opportunity to continuously leverage this visual content across social media platforms. And on top of that, you can get away with sharing that content on a more frequent basis. But before you can do that, you need to identify which content to repurpose. Let's take a look at how Vengage identifies some of its top-performing content. For us, organic traffic coming from search engines is where we put most of our focus. But this might be different for you. You might drive more traffic from other channels like direct, or referrals, or Facebook, or other forms of paid media. No matter what the channel is, you should be able to identify your top-performing content. In Google Analytics, we can go back several years to when we were just getting started with our efforts and where we had some really clear winners on our blog. You can see that this article on graphic design trends is a clear winner that made up 23% of all of our blog traffic during this time frame in 2017. Look for metrics like these to get an idea of which content is sending you more traffic or better conversions or engagement across the board. They will become your biggest bets for repurposing content. Now, instead of trying to recreate yet another article like this one, we decided to keep finding ways of recycling it and re-promoting it. As a result, even today, we still see a considerable amount of traffic from this one article. The next step is extraction. Extraction is breaking down your content into components that you can use when you are starting to think about repurposing that content. To better explain this, let's quickly walk through the concept of modularity. Now, processes can be independent or interdependent, or they can be modular. An interdependent process means that in order to achieve one outcome, you're entirely dependent on the step before it. In terms of repurposing content visually, generally a marketer will create a blog post first, then send it to a graphic designer who will create or modify it into several visuals that the marketer can then use to promote that article. In this case, the marketer and the designer are both totally interdependent of each other. However, modularity is the idea that components can be broken down into specific pieces that can work in multiple different patterns. There's less interdependence, and because of this, processes can become a lot more scalable. So how does this apply to repurposing content? Well, the concept of repurposing content visually is highly based on this idea of modularity. To better understand this, let's take a look at this Vengage blog post. Now, let's say we wanted to make an infographic based on this article. Following the interdependent process I mentioned earlier, the marketer most likely created an outline first. Then, once the article was written, they sent it to a designer to procure a unique infographic or other visuals. But what would happen if they needed an ebook or some social graphics in addition to that? Chances are the marketer would need to create unique outlines for every single image. Does this sound familiar? Well, at Vengage, we found this process extremely time-consuming and not scalable. So we started asking ourselves, If in the same amount of time it took a marketer to create one outline, could they actually structure that outline in a way that provided an unlimited amount of visual content? In other words, we started to create a modular process for repurposing content visually. So if you take a closer look, you can see that this article is broken down into different sections that guide the article. The introduction has been paraphrased multiple times to create various options. Important definitions from the article have also been documented. Facts and statistics are grouped as well, and the list goes on. Notice that the outline is not exactly linear, as is the typical practice. Instead, the outline is clustered in modular pieces that can be easily woven together to create unique visuals that can be repurposed exponentially. Here are a few examples of what we were able to create from just one of these outlines. The next step is creation. I thought it would be helpful to show you in Venngage how we would actually take content snippets from an outline and repurpose them into multiple social media graphics. So, when you get into Venngage, you'll be taken to the template section. You'll notice there's a lot of different recommendations based on the preferences you listed when you went through your onboarding process. Over here, you can see that there's a number of different categories that you can create from. You can open and close different categories to see different types of subcategories to make navigating through the templates a little bit easier. We also offer a search function in case there's something specific you want to look for. To show you Venngage's tool in action, I'll show you how I created an image for a Facebook post. You can search for Facebook just to see if there's anything that pops up immediately and that really catches your interest. Let's go with this one because I think this might fit into what I'm trying to do a little bit better. To give you a little bit of background context, I actually started with this content repurposing outline where we created more modular structures. I actually went through to see what I could potentially turn into an image or a visual. I decided to focus on definitions like this one to repurpose into a visual. So what I've actually done is I've taken some of the components and I've put them into this other document so that I can follow the process a little bit easier. So over here, you can see I have my definition for Facebook, I have my list for Twitter, and I have my step-by-step instructions for Instagram. So if I go back to my template that I've selected, I'll be taken here into the Venngage editor. The image is fairly large for me to start working with, so let me shrink that down a bit so I can have a better view of my canvas. So I'll jump back over here. I know what the definition is that I want to focus on, and it's the marketing plan definition. So because I'm working on a definition, I want to let my audience know that that's what I'm actually trying to create. So let's go with, what is a marketing plan? Maybe what I'll do instead is move this down here just to create a difference in hierarchy for the text. I want to make this one a little bit bigger so that I can actually fit the definition that I've selected. And over here, I can add some other content if necessary. As you can see, I also have this image here that's overlaid, and maybe I want to create something that's a little bit more relevant to marketing plans. So if I double click, I can search through different photos. Maybe I can do marketing or type that in, and I'll go with something like that. You can also change the opacity of this visual, so if you want to make it a little bit more prominent, you can just go onto this icon over here and decide how much more prominent you want it to be. But I think I liked where it was before. So I'll go back to my definition. I know that a marketing plan is a report that outlines your strategy for the coming year, so I copy and paste that here. Now, of course, the purpose of what I'm doing here is to drive people back to the original article that I knew was performing really well. So I can just leave a simple note that says, to learn more about marketing plans, visit this URL or this address. I can even emphasize this part by bolding it so that it catches people's eye. I also want to make sure that this is branded properly, so I can go to my brand kit over here where I can select my logo. I can either put it at the top or maybe I'll put it at the bottom just so people know what the company is. One last thing, I want to make sure that these fit my brand colors, so I can change it around until I find what works for me. And this will auto-brand everything. There are a lot of opportunities here for you to not only repurpose the same content across different platforms, but also take advantage of testing different visual styles to see what your audience actually engages with most. On average, our team at Venngage creates anywhere between 30 to 80 unique designs from a single article by following this process. Lastly, let's review how to share the content that you've created. There are a number of tools that can help you automate this process. I'm a fan of using Zapier integrations to automate the posting process. It's easy to upload images to Google Sheets and then use Zapier to auto-post on your behalf on social networks like Pinterest or Facebook. Alternatively, you can use a social scheduling tool like Buffer or HubSpot to pre-schedule different visuals on various days throughout the week. Submitting infographics to different websites and blogs and image creation sites is not only a great way to build quality inbound links to your website, but it's also a really great way of building more brand awareness around your content. And that's it. 4 steps to repurposing your content exponentially. We covered a lot, so let's quickly recap everything we discussed. First, identify what's already working well for you. Look at your web analytics to see which content is driving the most traffic already, or which one's driving the most conversions or engagements. Second, extract the most valuable information from that content and create modular components that can help guide you on how you design your visuals. Third, use those content snippets that you've created to design unique and custom visuals that can be shared on a frequent basis across different channels. You can use a free tool like Venngage, which has a range of easy-to-edit templates for social media, infographics, reports, ebooks, presentations, and many more. And fourth, share your content on an ongoing basis. Take these suggestions and use them to create a scalable process for repurposing the content that you already know works well for your business.